Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA manufacturers race at Tsukuba in the Group 4 car. So for this race we had a bit of a disaster with the connection in game. The first slot race we got disconnected, second slot race we got the whole lobby got disconnected, not one single person got into it. So we eventually got into the final race and we managed to do an okay bank lap. However, on our final run we hit the edge of the grass, lost the rear slightly and didn't manage to get our full low fuel running, which would have been quite considerably faster than what I did as my bank lap. I think it would have put me in at least the top 6 on the grid going by the first sector. However, we made a mistake, so we had to just take our banker lap as our qualifying position in this race. Good job that we actually did a banker lap. It does tend to suit these small tracks, you might as well go for a banker lap because you can get numerous laps done in these shorter tracks, as obviously the lap time is under 1 minute. However, as you can see, we're past the top 10 and we're still not in that top 10 position. So we've got a lot of work to do, starting all the way down on this grid. As you can see now, we're going to come across ourselves in a moment or two in P13, a fellow McLaren driver, and then myself in P14. Not very good qualifying at all. However, with the new system on Gran Turismo, now that we can't do the hybrid tyres, this opens up the strategy a lot more, and this is why I wanted them to do this, because although the McLaren was very good with the hybrid tyres, this now means there's more opportunity for strategy. So you're not going to get a situation where everyone's running the hybrids and then they're just going to do the simple one stop. Now things are a little bit different. The fastest way to run this race was probably a two-stopper, going soft, hard right at the end for just a few laps. However, you can see that I've started my stint on the hard tyres. So the strategy here is we're going to push reasonably aggressive on the hard tyres, and we're going to try a one-stop race with doing a very long stint on the softs at the end. Now the advantage of doing that is at the start we're out of position on the qualifying, so we've got cars that are probably a little bit slower than what I'll be able to do during the race. So we're going to start on them hard tyres and not waste the soft tyres, because if we go on the soft tyres on the first stint, the likelihood of us just catching people up and getting held up is very high. So instead, we're on them hard tyres, we're just going to use up as much of the grip pretty much as we can and then pit around midway through this race. Now obviously on this strategy that I'm going to run on the second stint on the soft tyres, we're going to have to be very cautious with that tyre wear, because they're going to have to do it a very long distance for the softer compound tyre at this track. So it's going to be really interesting how we run this. You can see in front of us we have I think we had all compounds available for this, soft, medium and hard. However, the mediums were pretty pointless because you had to run the hard tyre. So everyone's always going to use a soft tyre unless you're in, say, a Lamborghini for example. You might run the mediums and then do a hard stint at the 2 medium runs and then hard, just to get a little bit more life out of them. But at the moment you can see strategy going okay. We're starting lap 2. We've not lost too much to the cars in front, and luckily for me what it looks like is that the cars behind me are running a very similar strategy to me. They've probably thought as well, we haven't done the best qualifying, so we've run the hard tyres, and I'm actually pulling away from them. So this is actually looking fairly solid at the start of this race. We're managing to just about hang on to some of these cars in front. You can see FIA also didn't manage to do a particularly amazing qualifying in, so he started in P8 and it looked like to me that he was going on the same strategy as me. I very much thought that he would. He's got amazing ability at saving tyres, so I could see that FIA was up there in the distance, and my aim really was to see if we can get on the back of his slipstream somehow. We've got a lot of work to do that. You can see that the gap's around about 2 to 2.5 seconds to FIA at the moment, and we've got numerous cars in front of us. However, if they're on soft tyres, they're going to all be battling in front of me, and that is only going to help myself out as we're managing to increase the gap to the cars behind, which is looking very nice. Like I said, we're on start lap 3, we're increasing that gap to the cars behind, and we're maintaining the gap to the cars in front. Now we've got a Lamborghini in front. It looks like he's probably gone on the soft tyres because he's already dropping off on pace. Now those that don't know, the Lamborghini is a 4-wheel drive car, and it basically uses its tyres up as soon as it leaves the pit lane. As soon as you pull away, your tyres are pretty much screwed and you can't really get much life out of these tyres. You can obviously do a little bit, but they start fading very quick on the Lamborghini. It's one of the downfalls of the car, and you can see it happening in front of me now. We're starting to get very close. Even though we're on the hard tyre, it looks like this Lamborghini is struggling. Now he might be on the medium tyres and just they might be starting to wear out. I'm not 100% sure what tyres he was on, but we're going to get a nice exit from here. You can see using the full width of the track. He's not using that full width of the track, probably trying to look after the tyres. We're going to have a little look around the outside here, but the grip's just not there on the hard tyres. However, we're going to get a very good exit now out of this corner with that line that we took, and I decided we're going to have to be aggressive. We cannot wait around. We need to make moves in this race to get the positions done. So he leaves the door open nicely there. I take advantage of that, take that position from him, and we're up one position. And now we've got Fire in front of us, and as you can see, looking at the doubters, we're actually just about in the slipstream to Fire, and that is going to be a benefit to me now. I can obviously try and push. Now, I wasn't really worried about saving tyres with the hard tyre. They could easily do 12 laps. So my aim was just to push on these hard tyres and then worry about the tyres on the last stint when we're using that softer compound tyre. And at the moment, it's working out quite nice. We have lost, obviously, with over 12 seconds behind the leader, and we're only on lap 4. So the win is completely out of the question. It was all about just trying to recover some sort of result out of this race, just not to lose too much driver rating. I've already picked up quite reasonable points in the Manufacturers' Championship, and it was a shame that we were not able to enter the other 2 races, because I think if I managed to do a reasonable qualifying at this track, the McLaren was really strong, and I think I could have probably picked up a podium from this race. As we now skip through to the start of lap 10, you can see we're still in the slipstream of Fire in P6 there, and what's happened is a lot of cars have pitted. We're still out on them hard tyres, and now we've got a car that's pitted from the softs onto the hard tyres, I believe, behind us in that Mercedes, and he's having trouble getting past me. Now, I obviously don't want to let these cars pass, because we're actually racing these. They're on a 2-stop strategy, I'm on a 1-stop strategy, so as much as I can hold them up, this is good for myself. I need to defend, drive very tactical, take lines that is going to make them so that they can't get past me on acceleration or into the apexes. So you can see I take very early apexes here, and that's just going to prevent them being able to go for a move. And what this is also doing, you can see another car battling with that other Mercedes behind me, and this is good for myself. Them 2 cars are battling, and this is just going to mean that I've just got more ability just to hold them off if they're battling, and just concentrate on my lines and my driving as we about to start lap at 11, and we're up to P6 now. This is not really the position we're actually in, because obviously we haven't made our pit stop. We're going to lose a little bit as these tyres fade off, and then when myself and Fire go in the pits, we're going to drop right back down the grid. However, the cars in front of us then will need to pit, as you see looking at the replay camera just how close this is. A lot of battling going on behind us, and this is all good for myself. They're still not managing to get past me, so at this point of the race we're ahead of them technically, and if I can go in the pits ahead of them, they've still got to use the hard tyre. Some of these cars, some are on the soft now, some are still using the hards now. However, if they're on the hard tyre and we then go onto the soft tyre, I'm going to be able to gain a considerable amount of time, probably 2 to 3 seconds ahead, and then we've just got to hold off on the hard, on maybe more worn soft tyres at the end of the race. This is going to be a very interesting end to this race as we head into the end of this lap, and you can see that we've got a car coming through very aggressively, obviously on the softer compound tyre. You can see how much more grip he's got. I'm not going to fight this because I could see he's clearly on the soft tyre. It looked like the other SDL driver was on the harder compound tyre, so I thought it's probably worthwhile fighting that one off. But this driver, there is no point me fighting that off because he's on the softer tyres. Let him go. He's going to be a lot slower at the end of the race when he's on the hard tyres, and he also needs to pit again. So if I can just use his slipstream for this lap and then dart off into the pits and go for my pit stop. Now, it was very risky to go for a pit on lap 12 because that is going to mean I'm going to have to do 13 laps on the softest compound tyre, which is asking a lot. However, the McLaren, I have got pretty reasonable at looking after the tyres with the Group 4 McLaren. I kind of understand it. I know what I need to do with it. I know how you have to drive it, and I am getting a lot better at looking after the tyres with this car. So we're going to dart off into the pits. There was no point going another lap and then battling with the SDL driver behind me. So instead of losing time, I decided let's pit this lap, let's get them soft tyres on, and let's see if we can make this strategy work to the end. You can see we're going to drop down positions. By the time we come out the pits, we're going to probably be back down to pretty much where we started this race. However, the strategy that myself and Fire are probably going to be going on here should work out that you're just going to gain places as everyone starts pitting. As you can see, Fire obviously decided to go to a lap 13. He's going to go for a slightly shorter stint on the soft tyre. I think that the Jaguar wasn't quite as good on tyres as the McLaren. Obviously, it's not able to look after them front tyres as well as the McLaren. As we are struggling a little bit on these cold tyres, you can see the car behind going for a move there. However, the slightly fresher tyres and the inside line got the advantage there and just about managed to hold. That was really important that we did not lose that position. However, it's not been the greatest outlap so far. Obviously the tyres are taking time to get up to temperature, and now they're starting to give the grip, and we're in the slipstream of P14. But really, it would have been nice to come out in a completely clean track, no one around us. I thought that's what was going to happen by looking at the map. However, we lost a little bit of time there, unfortunately. We might have been, I was hoping we could get a jump on Fire when he pitted, because I was pretty sure he would pit the next lap. And as you can see up ahead, yeah, Fire is just coming out the pits there in front of us, and that shows you without that little loss of time, you can see we're just under a second behind Fire there. Without that little struggles on that lap, we might have been right behind him in the slipstream, and that would have been great for myself, because if we were sat right in the slipstream, that would have made the tyre saving a lot easier. We could brake really early, just be really gentle on the brakes, and we'd have the advantage of just being in that slipstream. But now we're going to have to fight to get past P14. You can see how much more grip we've got though. Going around the outside, we're going to try and hang this around the right hand side and go for the move and give ourselves the inside line into this heavy braking zone, and using up a bit of tyre life there, but I had to do that. The move had to be made, and now we're up into P14. So might not be looking particularly amazing at the moment. P14, we only started in P14. However, like I say, I do not need to make another pit stop. A lot of cars around us have to still pit, and this race is just going to keep coming back to us, hopefully, to myself and Fire in front of us, as we now have IA Racing, who I think's still on the hard tyres from the very early, went from pretty much lap 1, which seems like a very strange strategy to do. Maybe he was trying to do a no-stop strategy, but that clearly is not going to work for him. He's clearly not got much pace left in that Porsche in front of us, and now we're up to P13, where another car is obviously pitted for their final change of tyres. And the good thing about the majority of cars that are going in the pits at this stage of the race and onwards, I would say 70% of them are probably putting the hard tyre on. Now, the worn softs still should be able to compete with a fresh set of hard tyres, and that is the advantage of doing this strategy. We're going to be just maintaining speed to them, but we don't have to pit again. So up to P12, managed to make that move on the Porsche, and now we've got to try and see if we can get back into the Fire slipstream. You can see we got a little bit unfortunate with that pit stop. We're now 2 seconds behind Fire, and unfortunately not in the slipstream. We really did need that slipstream just to be able to make the tyres last that little bit longer, but unfortunately, like I say, it didn't quite work out. I think if I should have, possibly should have stayed out, but then would I have been battling with the SDL driver in that Mercedes on that final lap? It's one of them. You try and make a decision that looks the most sensible. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out for me on this one. However, we're still in P11 now. You can see every lap that we go past, we're gaining a position when people are pitting, and the pit stop loss here was around about 11 seconds. So quite a high pit lane loss, and that is why the one-stop strategy had the potential to work here. We did test it out in practice lobbies, and I did know that the one-stop would probably work out reasonable. I wasn't sure about doing it the way we've done it here, because the hard tyres at the start seemed quite slow. But however, in this race, managed to get some reasonable pace out of them on the hard tyres at the start of the race, and actually got them working quite well. And now we're on the softer tyre with the lower fuel. The car should be reasonable now to the end, as long as we just keep an eye on that tyre wear. So going into the braking zones again, we talked about it before. You can see I don't put 100% braking in. We're doing about 70 to 80% braking. That is really going to help you save your tyre life. Also downshifting, just being a bit more cautious on every shift that you do. Don't be too aggressive, you know, really fast downshifting. If you do that, you will tend to use up the rear tyre life a little bit more. As you can see, I'm trying to save the fronts more than the rears at the moment, because this car has a very high amount of grip, and that is why I've got the brake bias all the way to the rear at this stage of the race, as we're now up into P9. So you can see that this strategy is starting to come back into play a bit, as we've got another car in front of us. The other McLaren that started in front of me is directly in front, and I think he still needs to go for his pit stop in this race. As we're coming to the end of lap 17, you can see more cars going in the pits there in front of us, and you can see how this is actually starting to come back towards us in this race. It's really playing into our hands. Myself and Fire have managed to get himself back into ahead of where he started in this race, and now I'm up to P8. So another position gained. You can see we've overtook SDL McGee. He was behind us in that Mercedes, and look how much time he's actually lost out when he was on them hard tyres. Nearly 4.5 seconds, and that is going to be quite a hard task. He's obviously going to be on, probably going to be on soft compound tyres now to the end of the race, because I believe he was on the hard compound when he was struggling to get past us. However, he's only got about 7 or 8 laps to make that move, that done, so he's got to gain over half a second a lap. And this track being very short, this could work out for myself if I manage to keep the consistency, which at the moment we're doing a fairly good job. You can see on the right hand side the lap times have been fairly solid. Nothing like, you know, we're not flying, we're trying to make these tyres last to the end, and that is the important thing. As you can see in front of us, FIA's just a little bit ahead of us. You can see he's gained about half a second. He's now got LZR Lewis in front of him, who is on fresher, harder tyres, while FIA's got slightly worn soft tyres. Now FIA's got the advantage at this stage that his tyres are still fully alive. He's going to probably be able to go for a move and make it work a lot easier than what I will be able to by the time I've caught them up. And also the disadvantage that we're going to be in at this point of the race is, as FIA gets past Lewis obviously still has the hard tyres that are fresh. He should be able to hang in on FIA's slipstream. So FIA up into P4 in this race, from starting from P8, myself up to P6 from starting in P14. So far a pretty amazing recovery in this race, but we're not going to settle for P6 in this race. I really wanted to get that top 5, so we're going to push. However, what you can see if you keep an eye on the delta on the left hand side is every time we get to an acceleration zone, you can see that LZR Lewis is gaining, even though I think the McLaren is probably slightly faster on acceleration than the car that he is driving. But because he's in that slipstream of FIA, he's able to gain on all the acceleration and the kind of flat out areas of the track, and that is going to help him defend. You can see every time we go through a corner I gain a tenth or two, but then on the acceleration he manages to get that gap slightly up again. So it really does look like FIA managed to get that moved on at pretty much the optimal time in the race. While his tyres were still had a little bit of life in them, he was able to make that move and get himself into P4. Now LZR Lewis is just going to hang in on that slipstream for as long as possible. FIA obviously wants to break that slipstream because he'll know that towards the end of the race, if LZR Lewis is behind him on the last few laps, his tyres probably will come back towards FIA's. We've pitted very early. I obviously pitted lap 12, FIA pitted lap 13. Jaguar not as good on tyres as the McLaren, so his tyres will be suffering at the end of this race. They will be very worn out on the front end, so he's obviously trying to break that slipstream to give himself a little bit of a cushion towards LZR Lewis. And I was hoping that he could break the slipstream as soon as possible, because we only have a number of 4 or 5 laps to go in this race, and we need that slipstream to be broken so that I can try and start gaining on Lewis in front. As you can see, it's starting as he's pulling away from Lewis. The slipstream's getting a less strength for him to maintain the speed that he's got, and now I'm starting to gain a little bit more. We're very close to picking up the slipstream to LZR Lewis. You can see 1.5 is the distance you need to get it under. Going to brake very aggressively into this corner to try and get back into that slipstream and see if we can manage to get a little bit of tow. You can see just missed out there. However, will we be able to get it on the next braking zone? Obviously the softer compound tyres should provide that little bit more braking ability into the heavy braking zone. So going through this long right hand corner, you can see we're into the slipstream right now, and this is another corner where obviously the soft tyres are going to give you quite a big advantage over them hard tyres. As we go into the heavy braking zone, can we really push? You can see LZR Lewis pushing very aggressively there. Obviously doesn't want to give this position up. Myself pushing very aggressively. We started down in P14, a pretty amazing recovery to be in this position now into P6 and actually fighting for a top 5 position, which is something that I didn't expect would happen with where I started on the grid. However, we've managed to do very good tyre management. You can see we've only got a few laps to go. We've got the gap is not actually coming down as fast as I thought it would to P7 in that Mercedes. You can see that he's only actually gained 8 tenths in a number of laps, and that's not going to be enough to be able to challenge for us. So at this stage, I know that I've got this P6 covered. All that we need to try and do now is see if I can get myself up into P5. However, you can see it's very aggressive. The tyres are looking very warm. I'm trying my hardest. I decided as well to change that brake bias to +3 at some point in these last few laps to try and give myself a little bit more security on the rear, because I think the car was starting to get a little bit loose, where we're obviously coming over 10 laps on these tyres now. So the tyres are feeling their age. They're starting to struggle for grip, but we're going to push all the way to the very last corner to see if I can take that P5 position. You can see taking that very tight line, very aggressive on the throttle. You can see that certain areas of the track my car seems a little bit better, but then when we get to the corners where the grip is a little bit slightly more needed, you can see that that car in front has the edge on a certain area. So very interesting that the hard tyres being fresher can keep up in some areas, but overall I think my tyres were able to obviously gain traction in some areas, and that was able to get me into that slipstream and try and drag up to the rear of the Hyundai in front of us. You can see we've actually got that gap under 1 second now, and we've put that brake bias to +3 to try and secure the rear end a bit, because it was getting a little bit dodgy going into the braking zones. As you can see, still trying to look after them tyres slightly, only doing about 80 to 90% braking, still not going 100%, because if I go 100% these tyres will fall off very, very fast. But we've only got 2 more laps now in this race to see if we can get ourselves into the top 5, gaining in certain areas. And it's so frustrating because this track is a very hard track to overtake. I think what I needed to happen was that lap when we pitted that lap early and we lost that vital bit of time would have been so important. If I could have got in the slipstream of fire and caught up to P5 when my tyres were still fresher, I think we would have been able to make a move a lot easier. But now at this stage of the race, it's actually really difficult. You can see that we are gaining slight amounts in certain areas, however other areas we just don't have the grip to be able to go for a move as we now come to the end of lap 24. 1 more lap to go. We're not going to give up, we're going to keep pushing and see if we can find somewhere on this lap to go for a move into the braking zones. Maybe he'll make a mistake. We wanted to put 100% pressure on him. You can see going a lot more aggressive on the braking there now. Decided we just got to use the tyre life up. The tyre's looking very worn out on that left hand side. You can see on the telemetry the left, rear left, the front left are completely, probably about 60% red, and when you're on soft tyres that is going to affect your grip quite drastically. Obviously on the right hand side the tyres actually look quite nice, so certain areas of the track they're not going to actually be too bad. However, like the braking zones, it's going to suffer, especially like into this braking zone when you need the grip on the left hand side. We just don't have the grip to put the power down as we go through that corner, trying to get on the throttle nice and early and getting that gap under 7/10, but it's not going to be enough as we're going to come through to the final corner now and come home by looks of it in P6. However, this has been a solid race, managing to recover from P14 to take a P6 in this race with an alternative strategy, going for that one stop, starting on the hard tyres. A really fun end to the race. I did enjoy that race. It was a little bit more strategic. It had to be strategic at a track like this. It's a very difficult track to overtake. So decided to do my overtaking via the strategy rather than going for moves on track, and it worked out for us quite well there. You can see coming home under 10. The interesting thing is under 10 seconds away from P1. We were about 12 seconds behind him after a couple of laps. That really does show you that the pace was definitely there in the McLaren to pick up a very good result at this track. Unfortunately, that qualifying didn't go our way and we didn't get it. However, a really fun race. Hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure you hit that subscription button if you haven't already subscribed, and hit that notification button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks again for watching, everyone.